Hey guys, it's Oz Sports Psych time. As promised, I was giving you the test questions today. The daffodils aren't quite blooming, but our test questions are ready. So what I'm going to do is step through each one of these, hopefully to troubleshoot and talk about these a little bit, so you don't have as many questions as you might have as you try to address each one of these questions. Like I said, it's all going to be short answer at this point, no multiple choice. So I'll step through each one of these in turn. So question number one, as you can see, is name and briefly discuss the 5 AASP ethical principles. Those are in the book. Again, because it's only a 10-point question, you really don't have to go into a whole lot of detail, but I really want you to be able to know what those ethical principles are. So I think that's pretty straightforward and clear-cut. Certainly the answers are in the book, and I did talk about those in a fair amount of detail in class as well. Okay, so that's number one. Again, probably pretty straightforward. Number two, going to the chapter 2 information. Discuss the personality athletic participation link in level of achievement, type of sport, and position. All those, again, are toward the end of chapter 2. There's a nice big heading that says, the personality athletic link, and then each of the subheadings for level achievement, type of sport, and position are in the subheadings. So again, I think that's pretty straightforward. Again, it's a 12-point question, so each of those three things, level achievement, type of sport, and position, basically write about 4 points worth of stuff for each one of those. So again, pretty straightforward. Again, right from the textbook, I think you could find that information quite readily. All right, so that's number one and number two. Number three, name and briefly discuss 3 specific types of action bias. That'll be 3 points for each one of those. We talked about these in class. I can give you a bit of a hint. Okay, so firing the coach is one of those. So talk about that and the 2 other types of action biases. Again, that's worth 9 points. So again, about 3 points worth of information for each one of those. If you just put down firing the coach, obviously that's not sufficient for full points. That would just be 1 point, for example. So again, naming it would be 1 point, and then a brief discussion of the what goes into that type of action bias would be the rest of the points for that. Like I said, this one pretty straightforward in the textbook, laid out really well, and I also cover that in class as well. So that's numbers 1, 2, and 3. Going on to number 4, really important one, I think, especially in these days of coronavirus. What are the 4 characteristics of mental toughness? Okay, so that's again something we covered in the book, and I also went over that in class. So just say what the 4 are and define each one. And then, so I actually have that as 4 points. This question number 4 overall is worth 8 points. But part B of that is briefly to state the results of a research study that shows how mental toughness affects sports performance. Those are in the chapter 2. If you want a little bit of a hint, one of the studies is done by Curry. That should be easy enough for you basketball fans. Curry et al. Another one is by Gould, and another one's by Weinberg. So any one of those 3 that are shown in the text, again, none of those are really described in a whole lot of detail, but it does show you that there is research support for each of these aspects of mental toughness and how it does help sport performance. Okay, so that's numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4. Going on to number 5, okay, and 6. Name and briefly discuss the 5 strategies for increasing intrinsic motivation. Again, pretty much straight from the book, but this is an important question, I think, because we do want to increase intrinsic motivation. That does help performance. So talking about each one of those 5 is something I think is important and you should know about and be able to implement, either as a coach, if you're thinking about coaching later on, or for your own personal performance. Also, not so bad for parenting either. So all these things are, these strategies for increasing motivation, intrinsic motivation, really, news you can use type of thing. Again, 10 points here, so you don't have to go into a ton of detail about each of these 5 strategies. But again, it's really easy to find in the book. There is, the big heading is strategies for increasing intrinsic motivation, and then there's the 5, subheadings there. All right, so that's 10 points for that one. Number 6, name and briefly discuss the SMART goal components. Again, I've mentioned that again in the last email, I think. I'm not going to require you to read the whole goal setting chapter number 5. But the SMART goal components are really something that is used, in a whole lot of different situations. So again, just identify what the S, M, A, R, and T stand for, and talk about that briefly. Okay, just a heads up, there is some variations of this online. So whichever ones that you find, that's fine with me. But I would, since you all have access to the book, since we have free access to the ebook, I would prefer that you go with the book's version of the SMART goals. But like I said, there is some flexibility there in terms of what you might what some people do find online. All right, so we're up to number 7 now. Okay, number 7. Not too surprisingly, something that came straight from my chapter in the sportsmanship and cognitive sportsmanship book, the chapter on sportsmanship and cognitive psychology. I talked about this in the last lecture as well. It's in the PowerPoints, but described in more detail certainly in the chapter. So question number 7 is, describe the 4 steps of the COPE strategy of dealing with acute stressors. So tell me what the C, O, P, and E do stand for, and then give me an example of how a person would use this strategy. So be sure to address each step of the strategy. So again, if you use the example of Jamie Moyer from the book, or how you would actually do this if you were ever in a situation where you had an acute stressor, okay, how would you follow these 4 steps to deal with that acute stressor? Right, so that would be 12 points also. So number 7 is worth 12 points. Number 8, I just did a nice video, I hope, at least about the pet lep strategy. So what I want you to do is really personalize this idea of the pet lep. Okay, so what I want you to do is pick an activity that you do. For most of you, it's probably a sport that you engage in, but I know, again, not everybody in this course takes the course because they're involved in a sport. It could be something like musical performance, or a theatrical performance, or just even public speaking, or if you anything that might be involved with your job situation. All right, so think something that would be a performance of some sort, and specify how you would use the pet lep strategy to help you improve your performance. Okay, so again, you would need to identify each part of the pet lep acronym. You'd have to tell me what the P is and how you would use that in your imagery strategy. The E, the 2 T's, the L, the E, and the P. Okay, so I really like this question because I think it does, make you personalize and take that information that's in the book and really have the strategy that you can use to help improve your performance in whatever situation you might be in. Okay, hope that one makes sense. Again, that's 14 points because, again, pet lep, there's 7 different parts of the acronym. So, that would be, 2 points for each one of those, basically. Okay, so that's number 8. Number 9. Discuss the difference between thought stopping, countering, and reframing. Again, I talked about that in a lecture. It is also in the chapter that I wrote, I know, on sportsmanship and cognition. So give examples of each one of those. That's worth 15 points. Sorry, that's worth 15 points. Okay, so again, 5 points for each one of those different things. Thought stopping, what is it? How would you use it? Okay, countering and reframing. That actually came from the Bob O'Reilly lecture, as I like to call it. Okay, when I was out in the cornfield. All right, so that actually gets us to 100 points. All right, I do have a bonus question if you want to get like extra, an extra 12 points. So discuss the steps of the problem discuss how the steps of problem solving were demonstrated in the Touching Them All video. I haven't posted that yet. I'll talk about that in the very next video that I'll do. But that also is in the chapter that I wrote that I did post on Blackboard, so you all have access to that. Okay, it's a really amazing story. Some of you probably are familiar with it already, but you probably aren't aware that how well this whole idea of problem solving that we do investigate in cognitive psychology. All right, so that's your test. Okay, like I said, you have until next Wednesday. Again, because I'm only posting this later on Wednesday, I'll give you until next Wednesday to actually do that. If for some reason you do need more time, just let me know. Things are certainly, all right, weird right now. So just, give me a heads up if you do need any sort of accommodation here. Okay, so just, type these up, email them back to me, and then I shall, grade them for you. Okay. All right, so let me know, email me if you have any questions. I hope it's all straightforward. Again, that's one reason for posting it this way. I will also post these, so you don't have to refer to the video each time you want to answer the question. I'll put these on Blackboard too. Okay, so let me know what you think. All right, and take care, everybody. Stay safe, stay sane, and practice safe practices. Okay, take care. Bye.